Our next speaker, Dr. Fernando Fritz Riveron, was born in Havana just before the Cuban Revolution, and his family came to the United States after the botched Bay of Pigs invasion, but before the Cuban Missile Crisis. He grew up in Chicago, where his dad recertified and became a doctor again. Fritz went to medical school in Chicago, at Chicago Medical School, is board certified in general and cardiothoracic surgery. He has been a cardiac surgeon for 30 years, serving the people of central Wisconsin and establishing one of the top cardiac programs in the country. He has been involved in teaching across the country and around the world, in the Dominican Republic, Nepal, and more recently Kenya. He was born in Cuba, but is proud to be an American who is passionate about fighting against socialism. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Fernando Fritz Riveron.
I am wearing this to make a point. Actually, 2 points. One of is support for the police, who are so brave and who don't get enough credit in our country. It's a travesty. But the second point is that we physicians have been muzzled. We're in the middle of a pandemic. People, listen to this. Physicians can't speak up. Physicians we're chased, we're trolled. People will try to call your employer and fire you if you tell the truth about what you think is your analysis of science. Think about that. We're in the middle of a pandemic and our medical systems have been decimated. The hospitals losing money, nurses have been furloughed. We did the right thing, right? There's a virus coming from overseas and everyone is terrified, and we're watching what happens in Italy and what happens in China. And we were asked as good citizens to do the right thing, to lock down and stop the spread. What were we trying to do? Do you remember what it was originally? Bend the curve. That's right. We were supposed to bend the curve, so we've done that. And why were we bending the curve? Do you remember? We were trying to allow the healthcare system to ramp up and get capacity. What we got was empty ICU beds, furloughed nurses, hospitals that looked like ghost towns. In the middle of this pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, I walked into hospitals. I'm traveling around doing heart surgery around the country. I would walk into a hospital and it would look like a ghost town. But the media is out there saying it's the end of the world and that we need to keep everything locked down. Not only do we have to keep everything locked down, but we have to keep our whole society shut down. And think about who are the most vulnerable people in our society. We talk about this social movement, this Black Lives Matter and the inner cities, and our inner cities are hurting. They're truly in pain and destroyed right now. With our schools being closed, with single mothers having to take care of children that do not have any support from the school systems, with two-parent families, two-income families that are trying desperately to figure out how they're going to take care of their little kids at home. These people are being absolutely abandoned by the forces that are trying to keep this lockdown in place. So I wear this as an example of how physicians are being muzzled. And you're going to hear later on someone who has a much better story on this, but I'm going to tell you this one. I tried the other day ordering hydroxychloroquine for somebody, and for the first time in my 30-some-year career, I got questioned as to what purpose I was using this for. We use off-label medications all the time, so the fact that they're questioning doctors is a type of central control that is almost unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, the veneer of our civil liberties has been shown to be unbelievably thin. You're aware of this, right? Just like this, because of fear, we were able to strip you of your civil liberties, force you to do things like wear a mask, force businesses to close down. The first time in American history where we have shut down an economy. It's probably the first time, Dr. Gold may comment on this, but it's probably the first time in the history of mankind that we have quarantined healthy people and not sick people. The medical establishment has been silent on this because we've been forced to be silent. The majority of doctors are employees, and every healthcare system, I will name not one in particular here, but even in town, will tell their doctors that they cannot speak at a rally like this. I'm speaking because I'm self-employed. I can't be fired. But I can tell you, no, but I can tell you that I will be trolled, and there will be people on Facebook saying dangerous doctors. So that's why I wore this mask. I mean, I'm trying to take that low-hanging fruit away, because if they want to troll me on data, because I'm going to give you some data about what's happening in Wisconsin that will make your head spin. Because if you think about what's happened, our economy has contracted by 30%, folks. You know that all the little restaurants in all the little towns around this country that have been shut down are going to have trouble ever opening again. People are going bankrupt. There's destitution, there's depression, there's suicide. What's happening to our kids in particular, an entire generation of kids that are being left behind because they can't go to school? And for what? Where are the healthcare experts? Is it Dr. Fauci? Let me tell you, so the CDC came out just recently, and this got very little play in our media. The CDC came out and said that they supported very strongly that kids should be back to school on site. Ladies and gentlemen, we landed on the moon when I was a teenager in 1969, and we barely had any computers. Think about that. Landed on the moon and came back safely. And you're trying to tell me that since March, this United States of America has not had the ability to figure out a way to open schools in a safe way? It's absolutely, it's a travesty that our children are being left behind like this. And that's, you know, when we congregate like this, we can fight about masks. We can fight about this. This is low-hanging fruit. I'll wear a mask all day long if you tell me that that's what it takes to send my kids back to school, or my grandchildren in this case, back to school, because those people are getting really hurt. I'll wear a mask all day long if it allows the restaurants in town to stay open and not go bankrupt.